Hey, gang, I'm back again. You know me, I have a hard time staying away just because I have so much fun with these videos and these live streams. So welcome to the first edition of the Reader's Cellar. And the reason why I am calling this the Reader's Cellar is because I wanted to tie in with me being the Evil Dead chick and my love of the original trilogy of Evil Dead films. So instead of calling this like the Reader's Corner, the Reader's Nook, I wanted to come up with a kind of unique, or I thought it was a unique idea um, to, or a unique take, I guess, on the whole book review thing. Okay. Because I've seen things called the reader's corner, the reading corner, the reader's nook, just different things like that. So I wanted to do something kind of fresh, kind of new. And so I'm calling my book review streams or videos rather, um, the reader's cellar. And I also have a promo pick that I came up with, or a thumbnail pick um, to use for these particular videos. And this is an extension, so to speak, of Deadites on Deck, which is, where I do the watch-alongs and the various other live streams. Just like Seductive Poison, the Resurgence is a extension of Deadites on Deck. The Reader's Cellar will also be an extension of that. I'm thinking about maybe coming up with an intro, a really short intro for these. Don't have it in place yet, but I suspect it will be forthcoming. But I went on and did the pick myself. And I hope you guys and gals enjoy it and get a kick out of it and all of that. And so let's get to the book. You will see from the title of this video that this is Reader's Cellar Carrie book review. Now, yes, I understand there are several books with the title Carrie, but keeping with, or trying to keep with, my horror theme, I am going to be talking about Stephen King's first novel, Carrie. Okay. And this kind of ties in with a watch along I did not very long ago for the movie Carrie. So I suspect a lot of people that read horror novels are more than likely familiar with Carrie. But what about the people that, maybe have never read Stephen King, or, it's possible some people may not have heard of Stephen King. And that doesn't mean that they're not a reader. It just means maybe they've heard of Stephen King and not been interested in him. Or they think, all his books are just hardcore, gross out horror. And I'm hoping I can change people's mind about Stephen King if they do have that mindset. I'm not saying their mindset is wrong, but it may be, they may be a little misinformed, about his books. Because a lot of times when you talk about things like The Body, which was turned into the movie Stand By Me, or you talk about Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which just became short and it became The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, all of that stuff like that. Sometimes people that are not familiar with the overall expansion of Stephen King's work say, Stephen King did that? Because it just blows their mind. Because they only know Stephen King as a horror writer. But I think of Stephen King, I love horror. I love horror novels, especially, the well-written ones. Peter Straub is another author, and I'm going to try to cover, a lot of different authors. I'm not just going to stick to Stephen King, and I'm not going to try stick just to novels. I will cover nonfiction books. I want to cover, eventually the Curious Goods book that both TJ and I have a copy of, uh, with enormous amounts of behind the scenes anecdotes for Friday the 13th, the series, which only went on for 3 seasons, on which TJ and I have been covering over the last few weeks. But anyway, just a little background on what I'm going to be trying to do with these videos or trying to accomplish. But let's get back to Carrie. Okay. As you will notice, this is not a very thick book. Those of you familiar with Stephen King and his work, you will think, gee, this is a really thin book compared to Stephen King's later work when he was a more well-known author. But keep in mind, this was in the early days of Stephen King, right? And you can see by the picture on the book jacket, there's a very young Stephen King there. So a little background on this book. When Stephen King was writing Carrie, he was having, this internal struggle, I guess, in his head. And he was trying to write about high school girls. And he just didn't feel like he had a handle on that. And I guess he thought he wasn't doing the book justice. He wasn't doing females justice and all of that. And so he threw the manuscript that he had been working on. He threw the Carrie manuscript in the trash. Thank God. And for his wife, Tabitha, who is also an author, that she fished this out of the trash can and read it and then told him that he should continue with it, that she thought he really had something there. And so because of that, he went back to the manuscript and he continued writing and he finished Carrie. And guys and gals, that became Stephen King's first published novel. Why are people doing fireworks? I just heard a firework off. I guess because Labor Day's upcoming. I swear, around here, they've got to always do fireworks. And, every little whip stitch. It used to be just 4th of July. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to get back to this book. And hopefully there won't be a lot. Dang it. It's almost midnight. Don't they know people got to sleep? And if you see me jumping, it's just because I never know when these things are going to go off, when these people get started doing them. And so it kind of startles me a little bit. So this book came out in 1974. The adaptation, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Sissy Spacek, William Catt, Amy Irving, came out in 1976, the year I was born. So see, there I go again. I'm so sorry, guys and gals. It's just like, I thought it was going to be a quiet night tonight. Friday night was quiet. And, I don't want to spend this whole review thing complaining about fireworks, but back here in this back room, I'm sure you guys and gals can hear that. It's like people are so foolish around here. The only time you should be doing fireworks is 4th of July. I don't know why it occurred to people around here that every damn holiday you got to let off fireworks. So I'm going to try to get through this review without jumping out of my skin every time one of these goes off. So, as I said, Tabitha, Stephen King's wife, fished the manuscript out of the garbage can and encouraged him to finish it. And so the intro to this book says, "This is for Tabby, who got me into it and then bailed me out of it." So I thought that was sweet that he entirely gave credit for this book to his wife. So this book is not written like any of Stephen King's other books, in my opinion, because as you can see here, well, I don't know if you guys and gals can see real good. The first page says, "News item from the Westover, Maine Weekly Enterprise, August 19th, 1966. And then goes into an article about a rain of stones reported. And it talks about Carrie's mother, Mrs. White. And then once you get that little snippet, you actually go into the story. But the book is interspersed with pieces from newspapers and magazines and stuff. And then it's intertwined within the story. And I think it's awesome the way Stephen King did this. Because after that little snippet, you get, nobody was really surprised when it happened. Not really. Not at the subconscious level where savage things grow. On the surface, all the girls in the shower room were shocked, thrilled, ashamed, or simply glad that the white bitch had taken it in the mouth again. So we open with not only this little snippet of an article about a rain of stones on Margaret White's property. Then we go into Carrie's life at school, which is basically, it's bullying. People may not think of what's in a book from 1974 as hardcore bullying, but you got to think about the time frame. And this turns out to be very vicious, in my opinion, emotional assault on Carrie. Okay, because we then go into the actual locker room. You are in the locker room with the girls, with Carrie and the other girls. And so, it's very descriptive about the showers turning off and the girls stepping out, removing their bathing caps, putting on deodorant, checking the clock, bras were hooked, underpants stepped into. So you're kind of going along for the ride here. You're imagining or you're being able to visualize. That's something that Stephen King's very good at, is writing these characters in such a way that you feel like you know them, that you feel like you are in the locker room, for instance, with these girls. And it's not a voyeuristic property. It is, oh, I'm here, I'm seeing it, I can feel it, I can smell it. All your senses are alert. And that's because Stephen King is such a fantastic writer. And you're hearing little bits of the conversation between the girls. And then the gym teacher comes in. And I think Miss Desjardins, maybe is how it's pronounced. I'm probably massacring it. But Darcy, will you stop, please? Sorry, guys. If it isn't one interruption, it's another. I don't know what Darcy's doing. But anyway. So Miss Desjardins comes in. And she smacks her hands together and she says, "What are you waiting for, Carrie Doom?" So I think that the gym teacher, she softens up later. But I think the gym teacher comes off a lot more harsh in the beginning than she does in the film version. Because she does smack Carrie in the face when Carrie is hysterical in the film. But she doesn't come in and be really rude to Carrie, okay? So she tells Carrie and everybody else that the bell's in 5 minutes, okay? So then this part ends right before going into a book excerpt, okay, on what happens throughout the course of this book, okay? So, right before it gets to that, Carrie turns off the shower, she steps out, and then it says it wasn't until she stepped out that they all saw the blood running down her leg. And keep in mind, you're already in the locker room with these girls, okay? And you can see it, you can hear these conversations, you can see the blood running down Carrie's leg. You are visualizing, hearing, seeing, tasting, everything. And by tasting, I don't mean anything gross, okay? So think about when you're in the shower, for instance. Who hasn't got a little bit of the shower water in their mouth? I have. I'm not afraid to admit it or anything. There they go again. But so that's what I mean by tasting. Your senses are all alert in a very well written book, which I believe that Carrie is. Okay. So then after that shocking moment, we go into the book excerpt from The Shadow Exploded, documented facts and specific conclusions derived from the case of Carrie out of White. And then they go into the telekinesis part. Okay. So keep in mind that we haven't seen any telekinetic activity from Carrie at this point. But then we're plunged from blood running down her leg to this book excerpt talking about telekinesis. Okay. And then after that excerpt, we're back in the locker room and the emotional assault happens. You know, in the movie version, Carrie sees the blood before getting out of the shower. Like, you know, she's washing herself and, you know, washing her leg, and we see blood rush out. Okay. I'm not trying to be disgusting or dirty or anything like that. I'm just explaining, you know, that there are slight differences between the book and the movie. So she doesn't even see the blood, but Sue, you know, yells, "You're bleeding," you know. And then Carrie looks down and she shrieks. Okay, because she has no idea what this is. She has no idea what a period is. And we come more to figure this out because her mother is so fanatically religious that in her mind she thinks, you know, if Carrie doesn't have lustful thoughts or anything like that, the curse of blood will never come on her. But it comes because that's a natural thing that will happen to a girl at some point in her young life. Okay. But Carrie doesn't understand this. She thinks she's bleeding to death. Okay. So then the girls start throwing tampons and maxi pads and all this stuff at Carrie until she just can't take it anymore. So we go back and forth between the actual story at hand and then these articles and book excerpts and magazine and newspaper articles and the book excerpts. And some people might not like the way that is designed, but I loved it because this was not a novel in the traditional sense. Stephen King took a new way of showing you what Carrie's life was like, what happened to Carrie, what the aftermath of the really serious stuff that happens a little bit later in the book was, and all of that. So again, he really takes us on a ride here, and a ride that does not let up. Not even on the last page. Okay. I'm so mad at them doing this. But so, you know, we go through the entire book, which the entire book is only 199 pages, guys and gals. That is not at all like the bulk of the books that Stephen King would do later. Okay. And I don't want to like give anything away, but I just encourage you, if you have never read Carrie, if you've never read it and you like to read, you know, this is, you know, if people don't like to read books, period, they're probably not going to be watching these videos where I talk about books, because why would you? But if you're watching this review, it means that you're at least a little bit interested about what I'm saying about this particular book, or the books that I will be talking about in the future. Okay. So if you haven't figured it out, you know, basic plot line, Carrie is a teenager in high school who is made fun of, picked on, bullied, but who also has telekinetic powers. Okay. That means she can move things around. She can, you know, throw her mother down on the bed if she need, you know, and other abilities, as you will see as you read in the book. Okay. What the book also does that we don't really get from the movie is it takes you behind the scenes a little bit more. It shows you what life was like for Carrie as a little girl, being frightened of her mother. And a lot of these things could not be done in Brian De Palma's adaptation, because the ways and means to create these things. See, that's the thing about a book. You can write anything you want in a book, but when somebody tries to turn that into a film, depending on what time period the film was made, you may be limited on what you can create and put on film. Okay. And so I think Brian De Palma did the best he could with, I know I'm not here to talk about the movie, but I think Brian De Palma did the best that he could with the material. And I think he pretty much chucked the idea of having anything about these interviews, these book excerpts, all of that. And that was probably a wise choice for the movie. Because although it worked really well, in my opinion, for the book, I don't think it would have had the same effect in the film. I think it would have slowed the film down. But in the book, I think one thing just flows into the other. So I've talked for almost 25 minutes. Not all of it about the book, but so if you've never read Carrie and you like to read, first of all, even if you're not big on horror novels, I would still say give Carrie a chance, because it's not real bloody and gory. I know people have this idea about Stephen King that he's just a monster. You know, people that don't understand him maybe, or have never read his books, they just have the assumption that, who is this guy that writes these horror novels? You know, what kind of person is he? Is he weird? Is he dangerous? Because we got to think about these things. People don't always know everything there is to know about any author or any filmmaker or musician or whatever. But guys and gals, this is so well written. And so, whether you believe in telekinesis or not, the story surrounding the telekinesis is realistic. Kids get bullied, they get picked on, they get made fun of. There are some people, adults in this world, that are religious fanatics, okay? And can you imagine what they do to their kids? So Stephen King has said that he based Margaret White, the character of Carrie's mother, on a woman that he used to work in an industrial laundry. Okay, that was one of the jobs he had before he became a novelist. Okay, so when he worked in the industrial laundry, there was a woman that I believe he said she wore all black. She had this big handbag, and she seemed very strict and didn't really mix with the other people. She just did her job and then, went home. And he based Carrie on, I think, more than one uh, young girl that when he was a teacher, he was also a teacher at one time, that he saw this girl who seemed very downtrodden, walked around with her head down. And, although he didn't get a lot of insight into what was going on with this girl, he made up the story around this girl. And I'm thinking again that there might have been more than one girl that he kind of based Carrie on. And like I said, he built a storyline around her of what her life could have been like, you know. So the situations are realistic in this. The stuff with the telekinesis, some people believe in telekinesis, some people don't believe in telekinesis. To me, there's so much other realism and realistic situations in here without the telekinesis that makes this a worthy read. Okay. So I've almost went on 30 minutes. So I'm going to get off of here for the night, and I'm going to get this video put up on my page as soon as I can. But I appreciate you guys and gals that listen to this, and just keep in mind that there is more forthcoming. Not just Stephen King books. There's going to be all kinds of, hopefully sticking mostly to horror related stuff. Okay. I might even pull like special makeup effects books in here. I've got those Tom Savini books and stuff like that, the Grande Illusions books. And, I want to cover the gamut of, a lot of different things, not just novels, not just nonfiction books, just a mixture. So, I will return with another book of some sort. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be like a regular day for these. Just keep an eye out for the Reader's Cellar and check out and see what book I will be covering the next time. But thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. And my mouse is as it does every time. So I'm really gone now.